All right, ATT, this is Mr. Johnson, recording a quick mini lesson for part 3 of the weather project so that you will be able to write an equation that models the temperature in any city. So we're going to look at the fake city of Sandy Beaches, California, that they provided a minimum and maximum average temperature of that city, and we're going to write an equation, a cosine equation for this city in California. So let's look at it to start. It looks like our minimum average temperature is in January at 33 degrees. Earlier, we recognized that January is the first month of the year, so we'll call that x value 1, our y value output of 33 degrees, and July, the seventh month of the year, 7, 89. So we've got our minimum and our maximum there. And what we need to figure out is what is the equation and how is that minimum and maximum going to help us find parts of that equation. So if we look at this general format of our trigonometric equation, our cosine equation, we can see we need the midline, the amplitude, the cycle, or basically how many full cycles does this curve do in 360 degrees, as well as any kind of horizontal shift, remembering that the cosine curves start with a maximum. So I have kind of a quick little sketch here of a possible cosine curve, and that maximum that occurs up here we know is at 89 degrees, and our minimum that occurs down here is at 33 degrees. Now we know when those occur, and obviously after 12 months, this is just going to repeat and repeat and repeat. So we'll see those maximums and minimums occur again. But what we need to know for our equation for that midline is like, where is that midline occurring? What value is right here that has our midline? So let's start with that in order to write the full equation for Sandy Beaches, California. So we know in order to find a midline, that's right in the middle of our maximum and our minimum. So I'm going to take those two values, add them together, just like I'm going to average them, and divide by 2. It gives me 122 over 2, or 61 degrees, as a average of the highest and lowest temperature in Sandy Beaches, California, which tells me that my midline is at 61 degrees. So as far as writing my equation goes, I know that that first chunk is going to be 61 plus amplitude times cosine, my cycle, and then any kind of shift that we have going on here. So I've got that first part of my amplitude at 61 degrees. Or I'm sorry, my midline at 61 degrees. So now I need to find the amplitude. Amplitude, we know, is the difference between my midline and the maximum or the minimum, right? Up to the highest point or down to the lowest point. What is that difference? So if I think about 89 minus 61, or I could even say 61 minus 33, both of these give us the same exact value of 28. This 28 is my amplitude. It's the difference between my midline and the maximum or the minimum. So we'll put that 28 right in here as my amplitude. So now we have our midline, we've got our amplitude. All right, and because we're looking at a positive cosine equation, we've got that plus sign in between my midline and amplitude. Now what we need to figure out is that cycle piece in the horizontal shift. So the cycle is basically how many full cycles, full periods of this cosine curve are going to happen in 360 degrees. Well, we know that this is happening every 12 months. We repeat, right? So if it's repeating after every 12 months, that means we can figure out how many cycles are in 360 degrees by doing 360 divided by 12. And that 30, that number 30, will tell me exactly how many times this will go through a full cycle in 360 degrees. So that value 30 is going to go right into our equation because there are 30 complete cycles over 360 degrees. All right, so we almost have everything done. Lastly, we need our shift. We know that the cosine curves, if you look in the top right here, cosine curves always start at the maximum, right? That highest point. When we write our equations for cosine curves, we're wanting to start at that highest point versus a sine equation, which we would look to start kind of in the middle at the midline. So our highest point is a maximum of 89 degrees that occurs at July or in the month of July. And since July is that 7th month, we want to shift our equation over 7 to the right so that our first point is that 7 comma 89 that we care about. After that, every month is going, or every value is going to repeat kind of on this like 12 month cycle. So we'll hit that minimum, not necessarily at 1, right, but 1 plus 12 or at 13, comma 33, and so on and so forth. But we know that that shift is to the right 7, so we're going to have x minus 7 in our equation because we want to start at the highest point in July, the 7th month, 7 to the right. So this would be a complete equation for Sandy Beaches, California, and hopefully help you figure out the equation for the other city.